So, welcome everybody to the next episode of the Aviation Investor Club series. And I've got with me today yet another phenomenal guest. So, without me trying to introduce them, even though I've got a profile every single time, I can't put what they do into words. Now, William, he's like a guy that's done everything. He's been through the wars, he's got the scars, and I want to try and get that out in the interview today if we can get it out from him. I'd like you to give a very big welcome to William Snyder. Welcome, William. Could you introduce yourself and what should people know about you from this very first couple of seconds?
Thanks, David. I come from a unique kind of a background. I don't come from a traditional corporate climb the ladder style of success. And I don't even know if I'd calculate or state that what I've created so far is success, but I will say each year I am slightly ahead of the year before. Doesn't matter what I've done. So, where I come from, I actually started in the music industry. When I was a kid, I was young, and the thing that made me so excited every day was music. It's the thing that made me feel. It's the thing that my emotions could attach to. And all I wanted to do was play guitar, but my mother forced me to play piano. Anyway, that's a story for another day. I ended up playing the piano, and it ended up helping me with what I did later in life, which was become a record producer. It was quite a journey. I don't want to go too long, David. I know we can cut this stuff out, but
Yeah, that's
sometimes when I
fine.
flow, it's just going to be like a wall of words.
That's fine because you were actually saying, obviously for the call, I'm just keeping it going. This is great. This is gems. So you were saying that you were like a producer, a record producer, but you weren't
Yeah.
just a normal record producer. Actually, you were Grammy nominated. So
Yeah,
that means
multiple.
you've multiple. Okay, so we're
Oh
learning
yeah.
more stuff now. So how does somebody first of all become a Grammy nominated producer? Is it like a stage that someone has to nominate you, or did you nominate yourself and then people have to nominate like on those business sort of sites where say, yeah, vote me for being the best CEO of the year sort of thing? Or how does it go? Because it sounds like it's like a massive thing that from an industry that's very difficult to get into. How did you get multiple Grammy nominations being the producer?
It's really boring. Um, it's exactly what your mother tells you to never get involved in, which is a lot of pain, a lot of lies, a lot of never being paid, a lot of working with people who build you up and say you're amazing and then disappear and don't give you credit. It's a lot of that. Now, what I will say through that, it's really an interesting story. I was working at a studio in Central Florida. I was the head engineer. I was a partner at the place, and I found out one day that I had been Grammy nominated for over a year, and I didn't even know it. Yeah. A producer I was working with called me in last minute to do a record as an engineer for a record called Withholding Nothing by William McDowell. And he called me in at the last minute to help him out and take care of it. And I went in, took care of the record that day. We had to do some weird workarounds because the studio couldn't actually handle the session that was on there. It was a live session that was recorded live for William McDowell, and the studio itself couldn't handle it. It was too big. We had to run the whole thing off a laptop and a very small interface that we never should have done it with. But heck, it got nominated for a Grammy. It got beat by Kirk Franklin, by the way. It was a gospel record, so obviously Kirk Franklin would beat this nomination, but no win. So I guess your question was, how does someone get there? Yeah, it's politics, and it's being part of the boys' club in the music industry. It's doing things that you have to do in order to get there.
Yeah.
I'm not a kind of guy that follows the rules, like ever. I've never been. Growing up in school, I was in the principal's office just for fun. They would just send me there. One day, I knew she was going to send me to the principal's office, so I literally stood up in the middle of class and just threw my desk into her desk. Like not threw it, pushed it. This was second
Yeah.
grade, David, second grade. And she's, William Charles Snyder, go to the print. All right, bye. And I walked out the door, went to the principal's office. And I just sat there. And I'm just like, at least I did something to get here today. So that
That's
was
very
second
rock and
grade.
roll. That's very rock and roll sort of going there.
Listen,
You know, it's
listen, brother.
destiny
I,
to go.
I apparently have been rock and roll ever since I was a child. Um, Now let's talk about something fun here. So yes, I was a record producer. Yes, all of that, but it kind of just happened. I was very good at engineering, very good at mixing, very good at mastering, very good at music itself. But the fun part of this side of things, I was in a band too. And funny story, if you're ever in Orlando and you go to the Hard Rock and you go to the ticket counter, if you look right, there's a 6 foot poster of me standing there still to this day with my band. So if you go to the Hard Rock, go to the ticket counter to get your ticket for whatever show and turn right, you'll see Will Snyder with his band just standing there, literally 6 foot tall. It's great. It's so funny. Every time we go, my mom takes me. She's, look, I'm like, yes, I know. It's still a reminder. Thank you.
So
So
what
it's
was your
fun to
band
talk about
called?
the that band was called Sky Lim, as in sky is the limit.
Okay.
And the reason our poster is there is Hard Rock is trying to sign us.
Ah.
We only did one song,
Yeah.
and we had 5 or 10, but we only did one song and put it out. Hard Rock heard it because we were good friends with them, and they were trying to sign us. So now to this day, if you go into a Hard Rock anywhere in the world and you ask for Skylim, um, Kill My Dreams, you can literally have them play it over the Hard Rock Cafe. So if you go and you go, can you play Skylim Kill My Dreams? It's in their system. You can literally go listen to the song and the video on the screen. So it's pretty fun.
That is insane. I
So
might actually go and try that because that just
you
sounds like
should,
some
you
that's
definitely need
yeah.
to.
And we
You
know
do.
the
It's going to be
guy.
fun. You'll see me. I have extremely long hair and a big beard.
Yeah.
You'll see. I'm the guitarist. So that was fun, man. I got to tour with another band prior to that called 131,
Yeah.
with ONE 31, and our lead singer actually passed away in that band, and we had 3 record deals on the table before that happened, so we didn't get a chance to make it there either. As we go, you're going to hear some cycle of me because of him and because I don't follow the rules, and I'm quite contrarian in general with everything I do. I've learned the hard way, right?
Yeah.
So band broke up before we had 3 record deals on the table. Second band disbanded before Hard Rock could have signed us, right? Grammy nominations, but no Grammy wins, right? Now I do have platinum records and stuff. Now here, all this is all in fun. This is all in jest. I don't actually. It's not like painful for me. It's actually funny. I find it
Yeah.
hilarious. And now looking back, I go, man, I am the guy who takes the hard way no matter what. So yes, scar tissue is my thing, man.
Yeah.
Scar tissue is my thing. I'm used to both sides of the world. I'm used to being completely destitute and behind on rent by 6 months, and all being ahead on rent by a year. So both sides of the coin, I'm very much used to and comfortable in.
It sounds like
Kind
a
of a
country and
chameleon.
yeah, it sounds like a country and western song, and your name would be Scar Tissue.
Yeah, yeah, that could work. That could work, David.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So how did you then get into like aviation? Because I know you do have a history of that. So there is
yeah,
like a
sure.
natural, let's say, not a natural connection, and then you got private equity mixed into it. That's not a normal career. And obviously, people say
No,
if everyone's going left, go right. You've been doing that instinctively your whole life. So how does that
pretty
all go
much.
how does that all go together then?
It's interesting. There came a time where in the studio I owned a large recording studio in Central Florida. And at the end of the day, it wasn't making enough money to sustain itself and me. Even though we did the music for Empire, we did the TV show Empire, TV show Power,
Wow.
the TV show Star, because we were working directly with Rodney Jerkins. After Rodney Jerkins had got those contracts, a partner of mine, Marvin Tony Hemmings, he was a partner of mine at that studio, brought Rodney Jerkins in, and he was doing a lot of the work out of there. Great guy, great team, but problem is everything you do is free until the episode airs, then you get back pay.
Yeah.
And then you got to fight for back pay from people like Mr. Jerkins. So he's a very powerful man. And at the end of the day, you got to pay your people, right? I had inside that studio, there were 5 recording studios. So I was running a vertically integrated recording studio system where I had one studio was for editing, one studio was for vocal tuning, one studio was for prepping sessions. So they would go through an assembly line, would
Mm.
first go to the editing place where they would take everything, make sure the vocals are perfect, make sure the instruments are perfect, make sure everything's there. Then we'd go to vocal line, make sure that the vocals sounded perfect and you couldn't hear the differences. Then it would go to session prep. And by the time it got to me, it was ready to be mixed. So the purpose was we recorded in Studio A, then it moves around the cycle and it comes back and it's a full assembly line, which is one of the reasons that they called me the pinch hitter in the industry, because I was able to do things 10 times faster than anybody else. And this, because I put systems in place,
Yeah.
right? This is the basis for businesses. The basis for any successful, scalable business is systems, procedures, and processes. And that's what I put in place there in order to be able to move at the speed the industry needed. So
Mm.
somebody would take them 2 months to do a record, I could get it done in a weekend. And that
Okay.
is saying something. They'd
Yeah.
never seen anything like that before, and the quality was consistent. So anyway, how did I get into private equity? This is the basis for that story, right? So I moved from this, I closed the studio. I took about 3 to 4 months off and didn't know what I was going to do. So I just literally took time off for 3 or 4 months and just tried to figure out mentally what I was going to do. I was like, man, my great uncle was in real estate. That's when I got into real estate. So I started at the bottom in real estate on purpose. I like to know every single job and fail
Yeah.
at every single job. So I know how to troubleshoot anything, because troubleshooting is the most important part in any business. You got to be able to troubleshoot every single area. So I did. I started a wholesaler, then I started flipping homes, then we started doing multifamily, and then I started buying apartment buildings, and all with a group, right? So we were buying all over the US, buying direct from asset managers. So that was kind of the real estate story. After that, we can talk about that story later. I just want to keep on topic with telling you how
Yeah.
I got into aviation and where aviation came from, because there were quite a few questions you asked. After that's when I moved into private equity. So that the story, the transitions are always some form of betrayal that has happened. Okay. But also a realization on my part that I had learned what I needed to learn for my circle of competency in that specific area. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking at these things as careers. I'm looking at, oh, I've gained another circle of competency.
Mm.
Oh, I've gained another circle of competency. Oh, I've gained another circle of competency. These are all tools in my toolbox. It's not a career change. I don't work for people. I think you've gathered by now that I've never had a job for anyone else,
Yeah.
other than in private equity. And still, I was working for myself because it was commission only, and it was my own company, right? I was make it if I did or didn't, right? So I moved on to do some private equity deals at the lowest level possible, right? So I am bringing investor in from cold calling at this point, right? I'm
Mm.
basically a boiler room guy at the start in this private equity space, and I'm learning how to do that. Never done that before. Never done sales before. Never even thought of. I did, but I didn't know I was doing it. In the studio, sales was logical because they were coming to work with me. So at
Mm.
the end of the day, it was, you're going to pay for it or you're not. Like, that's is what I charge. If you want to work on it, this is what you're paying. And sorry, can you give me a discount? No, it's that simple. Like,
The story.
no, and they don't know what to say at that point. They're like, oh, I guess I won't record here. Okay, I'll tell you who you can go record with. Go up the street, and here's this guy. He's really good. It's not going to be what you're looking for here, but you're going to get something I think you'll like. That's it. Send them on their way. And guess what? 2 weeks later, they're coming in. They have the money and they're paying. And that's sales in a nutshell.
Exactly.
Massive beyond confidence in what you can do and your capabilities and what you're going to provide, that it doesn't matter if they do or don't say yes. So I learned that like last week. Even though I
The
was
walk
doing
away.
it 20
Yeah.
years ago, even though I was doing it 20 years ago, I mentally put the two and two together. So yeah, so private equity, I was literally learning how to cold call. I was building more of a thick skin in a different way. The music industry gave me a thick skin because they tell you that they don't like your mix and you take it personally. It's their freaking music, right? You have to learn at the end of the day. They want it to sound a certain way. Yeah, it should sound this way, but at the end of the day, it's what they want. So you learn to have a thick skin and you learn to get over it. It's not about you, it's about them. Same thing with cold calling. I was like, oh, all right. If they were calling me, I'd be hanging up on them. So I just developed that mindset and got into a framework and learned how to do that. And through that, I built a system. Once again, build
Yeah.
a system for myself.
Yeah.
And then I started training the people around me because my system was working, and I started giving them my system. And within 3 months, I was the manager of that branch of the firm in Palm Beach. And at that point, they fired the owner of that branch and they put me in his position, not as the owner, but as the regional director. So I was the regional director of the Southeast for that
Mm.
private equity company. And I ended up teaching all the teams how to do what I was doing to scale everything up. And by the time that was there, I got bored and I left.
Okay.
I was working on a project, in an aviation project, right? So
Mm.
this is where it kind of ties in. So where I was living in Palm Beach, there was a gentleman who was in the same street, and he had started an aviation wheels up like type
Yeah.
thing. Uh,
Yeah.
you go on, you book your flight, you got guaranteed availability, and it's this plane, and it's definitely going to show up on time, and blah 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 blah. Anyway, we've all heard it. It's all BS. They never work. This guy though seemed like he had a real plan because of the way he was aggregating data in real
Mm.
time, which was very unique and interesting. We're not going to talk about his name. We're not going to about the company's name, but he was a great guy, a great idea, great plan. This is also where I met my partner Todd Weber. That gentleman and I were trying to hire an interim COO, and through a firm that places people in companies, I
Mm.
forget what they're called, recruitment firm.
Mm.
We found Todd, we interviewed him, and there was something unique about Todd. He had a very calmness about his energy, a very sureness about himself, and also a very kindness, very much very a nice kindness about himself. So we got to know him a little more, and we ended up hiring him as a consulting COO. I was a consulting CFO slash investor relations guy at the time because my goal was really to help him build the systems that are in place for the company, obviously, like we talked about, but as
Yeah.
well as help raise the capital for the company. And in order to do that, I had to be a part of the company. So That's how we met Todd. It turns out that this gentleman um, had his own plan, and the plan that Todd and I were putting in place wasn't the same as his plan. And I think both would work, but it just wasn't the way that Todd and myself wanted to go about doing it. And we both wished him well on the same day. And he's still out there kicking butt. He's doing a great job. He's got planes. He's really building what he's built out there in Palm Beach, and super proud of him. It just wasn't for Todd and I to go along that path. So that's when Todd and I broke off and started some other aviation things. Now, I'm gonna circle back here to the beginning. You asked how I got into aviation. I was born into it. That's a ridiculous statement, right?
Exactly.
Um, so no, I was born into aviation. My father was a mechanic early on. He got his A&P license, went to Embry-Riddle and Princeton University and so on and so forth, and got his A&P license and became a director of maintenance for a bunch of different multi-billion-dollar companies. As a child, when my mom was flying, because my mother was a corporate flight attendant for
Okay.
private jets with some of the craziest people you'd ever think of. And I don't even think we can talk about it on this webinar. I grew up in the hangar I grew up around Gulfstreams, Globals, and Bombardier, right? Challengers, Falcons, Sikorsky helicopters. I grew up in and around all of them, like all the time, because I was in the hangar with my dad because he had to go to work and she was flying, so I couldn't be anywhere but with him. So I spent my time in there, and I would just sit around and find anything I could that was trash and turn it into an airplane. I'd just build it, popsicle sticks and tape. That was what I
Yeah.
was doing as a kid, a little engineer, right? Popsicle sticks and tape, building airplanes and trying to make them 1 to 1, like 16 to 1, 20 to 1 ratio
Yeah.
aircraft. Like, does it just look like this? And then I try to fly it and it would fly, which is crazy. And I was like, oh, okay. But that's how I got in aviation. I grew up around it. I grew up hearing the talk, but from a director of maintenance side of things, from what has to be done, prepping the planes, seeing how they're there, seeing the interiors, being on them,
Mm.
flying on them, so on and so forth. But never from practical experience did I want anything to do with aviation.
Yeah.
I was just, I was there. I knew it out of osmosis. So
Yeah.
growing up around that, it was always in private aviation from the Part 91 side, I should say. Never 135. In fact, in the household, 135 was a dirty word
Oh dear.
because, yeah, because 135 planes tend to be dirty.
Yeah.
They tend to be used. They tend to show their wear. They tend to have stains. And growing up, it's funny because NetJets is like the company, but we were from Part 91 world. We looked at NetJets as a taxi.
Call them as being patinaed or having history. You just say that stains.
You got it. You got it. I like what you say. They got patina. Yeah, no, they're stains. That's a stain. We don't know who was there. So I grew up with my mindset. I grew up in a very posh mindset because, yeah, we were the maintenance crew, but it was instilled upon us from the people who owned the dang planes, right?
Yeah.
That's my journey from business aviation. And through that, I was like, I don't know why I'd get involved, but business is business, right? I have a saying, everything is the same. Okay. It
Okay.
doesn't matter if you're the janitor or if you're the CEO,
Yeah.
everything is about details. A janitor, and you can clean the floors. You can take your mop and you can put it in the dirty water from yesterday, and you can use the mop head from 3 weeks ago, and you can just squirt a little soap in there and you can clean the floor. Or you can take the mop, put a new mop head on, make sure the bucket's clean with bleach, put fresh, clean water in there, make sure it's measured out with the right amount of soap. And then you can go into the corner of the floor and you can clean the floor and it'll come out 10 times more. And if you focus on the cracks, you clean the cracks out with a toothbrush. And then you go and you clean every single piece of trim. And you make sure you clean the vents in the ceiling and you clean the walls. It's totally different, like the CEO. Like if you don't focus on those details, you're going to fail.
Yeah. It's almost as
Period.
if it's like you do some mentalities could be just do enough to get paid, whereas some they do enough because it's you get take pride in what you're doing.
Yeah,
And so there's a difference.
exactly.
They both get the job done, but the standard and the quality is if you're doing the job, you want to take satisfaction that you've done a good job yourself. It's your
That's
work,
right.
your time,
That's right.
your part of life you're doing on that. If I'm going to spend
Yeah,
my life doing something, why not be proud of it?
I agree. I completely agree with you, David. That's why, to me, details are the most important thing in the planet.
Mm,
Details and finding the new details because, cool story from music industry. When I was coming up, I had a producer I was working under. He was amazing, but he was also a complete jerk,
mm,
where I got some of my jerkness from, actually. I was in the studio and my ear was better than his, right? I could tell you that guitar, there's a ringing at around 3 to 4K hertz, kilohertz. And he would go, "What are you talking about?" "No, there's not." I said, "Yes, there is." I go in, pull the EQ up, pull it out, and there it is. Boom, drop it. And he'd go, "Oh, that sounds better." Okay. So we were working with a band, so on and so forth. And he was very upset with me over random little things all the time. And one day he like started screaming at me and he told me this. He said, "William, you will never make it in the music industry. You will never be a mix engineer. You will never be a platinum producer. You will never do any of it because you don't focus on details. You don't even care about details. You're not detail oriented and you never will be." Guess what the hell I did?
Wow.
Yeah. So when you talk about thick skin, I grew up with this kind of communication to me all the time from
Yeah.
people. And I was probably a little spoiled jerk, to be honest. I don't know, but I probably was. In order to get that kind of stuff, I was probably like, "No, you're wrong. This is this. No, I know what it is, and you don't." I was probably doing these stupid things. Now, I don't remember. I don't have any memory of it, but I was probably a little arrogant jerk that didn't know anything.
Uh,
So now I'm just a big arrogant jerk that doesn't know anything.
I wouldn't say that to you anyway, but it's good to know that you've got some sort of opinion of yourself. It's not what everyone has, because I think you're a nice guy. I think you've got a lot of wisdom to share, and you've been very friendly and
Appreciate that.
very supportive. You're like that grandfather mentor figure that people want to try and find, and you've always been helpful. So obviously, if you think to yourself, I haven't felt it, so it's a one-sided thing. But if you want to have
I
that
like
feeling,
that.
it sounds good. I like it anyway. That's really good.
That's
So
perfect.
you've mentioned a couple of times that actually your processes and systems are your thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
how did you get to master those? Because obviously you can't just be born by knowing how to do processes and systems. That's not how people are born, right? So how did you learn that was your thing, or it just comes naturally to you? How do you find the what you think could be a good process, or how do you put it in your mind to break a system down so it would work? What research do you do? What books do you read, or movies, or inspiration? Where do you get that from? Because it's not so intuitive to a lot of people, and it's a very big blocker. So how does it come to you?
I'm going to try to be as straightforward as possible here. Ever since I was a child, I have wanted to get things done quickly so I could go have fun. Okay. So mom says, "You need to go rake the leaves in the yard, and you got to put them in different bags, and you got to put the bags by the curb so they can come pick up the leaves," right? We had 10 oak trees on our property. Okay. I'm telling you, these leaf piles were 6 inches, 8 inches deep. And I had it was a half acre that I had to rake with a rake. This is before they had those machines and stuff. No, we didn't do those things. No, hand hard work. Okay. So this is as early as I can remember myself developing systems. So I'm going to break the statements you just said. I was developing systems when I was 6 years old. Now, I didn't know it at the time. What I knew was I have to do this first, I have to do this second, I have to do this third, I have to do this fourth. And if I do it in this order, I can get it done quickly. But if I switch step 2 and 3, it'll be slower and I'll actually have to go back. So what I did is I did trial and error for myself with raking leaves. Okay. How would I do it? First, I started with raking everything into a pile and then putting it into a bag. And then I'd have to fill up 3 bags with that one pile, and there's still some stuff left over. And I was like, this doesn't work. What would work? Maybe I can rake them into a line. So then what I did is I raked the leaves into a big line that was wide enough for the bag, put the bag at the end, and I'd scoop the leaves into the bag. And as I walked, the thing got smaller. And one bag was done. I'd leave it there. Next bag, great, boop, okay, boom, boop, boop, okay, boom. And then I had a leave. I had a full line completely done, twice as fast as if I was raking them into a pile. The next thing you got to think about is you section off your lawn, right? So I had to section the lawn off into pieces so I knew how many bags I would need for each section. I'd pre-place the bags before I started doing it. So now I create an assembly line for myself. And eventually so on and so forth. So this is how early I was talking about systems. I didn't know what they were. I was trying to get done so I could go ride my bike. So
At
I
six
just
years old, I was
created
probably watching He-Man or something, and you're there making systems for the garden. That's boom.
I was making systems for the garden, and I did it with everything. And it was literally because I wanted to go ride my bike.
So
So
could you say it's about, because I wouldn't say it's you want to do something else, but maybe if you were like you had other and like ambitions, or maybe that the lazy mentality is I want to do other stuff, not what you wanted me to do. I want to do my own stuff. So I just want to
Mhm.
get your stuff done as quickly and as easily as possible so I could do my own stuff to get it to. Because
Yeah.
that mentality is
And
quite common.
the right
Yeah,
way though, the right way, because the key quickly and efficiently, yes, but it
yeah,
also has to be the right way. It can't
yeah.
be half-assed,
Okay.
as I would get in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be,
Okay.
it's going to be checked. Is every weed, did you get all the roots out of the weeds in the garden? Yes, I have a system.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that as a kid. I'd be like, yes, I do
Unbelievable.
it this way. Bump, 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 bump. Yeah, all the roots are out, and here's the thing. Okay, the dirt's shaking off. Now you got the dirt. Like I had a whole thing, and I
Yeah.
would repeat it, and I realized that I could create muscle memories with repetition. That was the
Yeah.
point. So I had to create something that I repeated exactly the same way, so
Yeah.
that the more I did it, the faster I could do it, and the more
Okay.
accurately I could do it as a kid. Because if I knew I had to start slow, but then it would speed up and I would be done quicker than,
Yeah. Yeah, because we've been focusing on lots of different areas at the moment because obviously you're multifaceted, like in a lot of ways.
yeah.
So you've got the music industry, you've then gone
Mhm.
to aviation, we've covered that, we've got PE, but you've also got the real estate angle. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people they struggle really quite a lot in real estate, even though they know it's like an
Yeah.
asset, blah blah blah. Going
Yeah.
maybe they've gone the rich dad poor dad route, and then everybody's like
Sure.
trying to get into real estate and then trying to make their millions with zero money down and trying to be
Yeah.
creative. And when the
Mm.
interest rates go higher or lower, they're like
Mhm.
on it's disaster. So how did you get into real estate? And because you monstered it, you were like
Yeah.
you literally smashed the real estate market. So one question is like, how did you get into that in the beginning? And the second place is, would you see yourself getting back into some of that, or have you even left?
I love this because I think this is really funny. How to get into real estate. The real story is it's technically in my blood. My uncle, my great uncle, my grandfather's brother owned a little company called McGuire Burke in New Jersey. If you looked up McGuire Burke 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they were the largest landowner in New Jersey.
Wow.
And what they ended up doing was they did the 30-mile plan, right? There's a standard real estate investment strategy, 30 miles, 30 years. You go 30 miles out from city center and you buy all the land you can in a circular area and you wait 30 years. And the money will 10, 20, 30, 40, 50x from what you originally bought it at. That is a standard real estate practice that is done. Okay. That's what he did. Now, I didn't know, but I was always grew up with real estate, money, real estate. You do this, real estate. Okay, fine, whatever. Never interested because I wanted to go have fun. Remember, ride my bike. I didn't want to do real
Yeah.
estate. So after the music industry, I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know how to do anything else. That's where my mind was. I was like, I'm a record producer. I'm a musician. I'm a mixer, right? I can go do the record anywhere in the world and this thing comes out great. What am I going to do? So, real estate's in my blood. Let me try that. So I was on YouTube and I got an ad for a free real estate course. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody's watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about. Free course. It's a 1-day course. Come in and Mr. Wonderful will teach you his real estate tricks and tactics. And it's called Fix the Flip or this, that, or the other thing. And they get you in there and then they don't tell you anything about real estate. They just tell you how cool everything is and what people have done and do all this intrigue and tell you no information whatsoever. And at the end, they're like, hey, if you want to learn more, it's $5,000. And then you'll get a much smaller class and it's a 2-day class and you get to do this, blah, 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 blah. I was at the point where I was like, you know what? I know how this goes. I know this drill, but maybe I'm going to learn something in this class enough to get into this real estate thing. And I paid the $5,000. I did it. I actually did it. Didn't care that it was for Mr. Wonderful or that. He's the one who got me to the event, right? He was on stage and he taught us about his investment portfolio and his ratios between what he invests in and what he doesn't. So it was Mr. Wonderful and he was there and he taught us all about his ratios of investment and what he likes to put in his stock portfolio and when he sells and when he buys and so on and so forth, and gave a little bit of a push to what this flipping homes thing was. And with no money down, we just talked about it. Flip homes, no money down, how to make money in $5,000 a month with real estate with zero money down and having no money. I'm like, all right, I just paid 5,000. So chose to pay the 5,000, right? And then went to the course. It was really good. I thought it was really good. And of course, there was an upsell at the end there too to get the ultimate package, which gives you everything, including on the ground, boots on the ground training where you go and you watch them do it. You go through deals with them. And that was 15,000. I paid the 15,000 too, David, because at this time in my life, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's about what I put into it and not about the course. So if
Yeah.
I put the time, effort in, this money's worth it because I'm going to make it back. If this is real and these guys really have made this money and they've really done this thing, then I'm going to make it back on my first house. Okay. I didn't. I made it back on three houses, but hey, it's fine.
Yeah.
So got in, started doing this, learned in depth. Like this was my new job for me, right? I got up, went to the course, got up, went to the course. This is when I fell in. I was already in love with cigar shops well before that, but this is when I got deeper in love with the cigar shop because I would wake up in the morning and as my job, it was my job to go to the cigar shop with my computer and look for houses, um, bake a list, create a system, blah, 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 like we just talked about, and creating my own system for myself. And I started as a wholesaler and I wanted to learn every single thing about it. And they were telling us all about assignment of contract and telling us how to wholesale properties. And they're not telling you that people hate that. They're not telling you that every single buyer and investor hate wholesalers and hate assignment of contract people. So I had to pivot pretty quickly when I got some major headwinds with this kind of stuff. And I'm like, then I had to think logically about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. I would hate that too. Why would I want somebody to buy a contract and sell it to me for an up, even if I'm making the money? Like, why can't I just go do the deal myself or hire somebody to go find them for me? That's what we found about bird dogs. So that's how I got started. And I just pivoted. My life has been about pivoting, right?
Yeah.
You have to look at life as a science experiment if you can, if you have the luxury. It's difficult. You may not be able to, but you've got to have the perseverance and the luxury to look at life as a science experiment.
Mm.
Failures are expected. All failures are expected.
Yeah.
I expect people to fail 15, 20 times before they get something. As long as they keep going at it and changing one element of that thing that they were doing, you're going to know this element works, this element works. And eventually you put the steps together, element one, element two, element five, element 12, element 11, element nine, they work. So let's do all of those. And then boom, you got it. You got the right
Mm.
system that goes in place and you can put it in place. And it goes back to the leaves in the yard, David.
Mm.
I learned how to make a line. I learned how many bags I needed. I could eyeball the whole yard and figure it out. And then that's what it takes, right? The first one was not success because it took me way too long to get it done. The next time was a little shorter. Next time a little shorter. Next time, and that's business. That's
It
life. That's
sounds
success.
so familiar. But I've got a question for you now. If there'd been somebody walking past and they'd said, "Hey, young William, if you at the moment, when you at the time when you were making the piles of leaves, if there's an easier way, if you make the lines, it would make it much more efficient." Would you have said, "Nope, that's not the way. I want to find my own way. I
Yes.
want to do my own
Yes.
system." So
Yes.
sometimes you
Which
have to have
brings,
experiential experience. That's what experiential lessons rather than
yeah,
being told or reading a book because it's like it doesn't make any sense otherwise. Would that go with you?
absolutely. Sadly, I don't learn from other people's mistakes. I've tried. Mentally, I've tried, but I seem to have to take the hard path and I seem to have to develop the scar tissue in order to get it ingrained in my brain and these neurons. And I don't think it's an arrogance thing. Talking back to earlier, maybe it is. Maybe I truly think that I'm smarter than other people. That's which is silly, but I have to learn that way. And I never thought I was that kind of person. And I only realized that in the past couple of years that I am the guy that has to learn the hard way. I'm the guy that has the scar tissue to prove it, right? But I know what that person feels. So this is the superpower now. I can call people out very easily because I can see their actions, I can see their emotions in their face, I can see their body
Mm.
language, I can feel their energy, and I can be like, "You're doing this, and this is why it's not going to work, and this is how it can work." And once again, now I'm the guy trying to tell the person who may not be able to handle that. They might be like, "I got to learn it on my own," which
I
I've
do it
dealt with.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll do it myself. I'll fail myself. Yeah, I get it. Me too.
Just don't use my money to do it with.
Yeah, you got it. You got it, David. You got it. You got it. You got it.
So when we go back to now your PE sort of career and what you've been doing that, you've got your company now and you've made some products. One of them
Yeah.
is the Skylease 25. The other one's the income fund. So how did they come about? What do they do? What if people have never heard of them? How did you come up with the subject or even the idea that this could be a thing? Like obviously you say you have systems in place, you obviously have to be experiential, you have to fail until you succeed. How many iterations and stuff did it take to get it? Like how will these things come together? So if we start with Skylease first, Skylease 25, what's the genesis or how does it come to that? What's it about? Because it is
Well,
quite cool. Yeah, quite cool.
Skylease 25 is pretty cool. It's nothing new. It's literally just a real estate model put into aircraft, just to let everybody out there know. If you were to break it down to its minimalness, it's just a real estate model that we use in aircraft instead of houses, which is actually better because houses change based on markets, and aircraft over the past 25 years have been steady at exactly what they're worth. I don't mean the same price. The downward depreciation of the aircraft has been extremely steady. And there's aircraft that are in the specific phase that are at the perfect place. Anyway, how many iterations? I don't know. A lot. I have taken the model and broken it apart. I have put it back together. I've changed the timing. I've run countless financial models in order to make this thing happen. And eventually we settled on the model that we have now, just based on uh, what investors would like, as well as the highest level of returns for that opportunity. And we did something called a retrospective pro forma, where we went back 20 plus years, more than 20 years actually, and found historical sales data, the highest and lowest price of each part in the aircraft, what it sold for, and the highest and lowest price of the aircraft itself that has sold each year
Mm,
inside of the specific underwriting criteria that we use in order to purchase that aircraft. Because the underwriting is the most important thing about this deal. If you don't underwrite the aircraft properly, you'll never win. Just like with a house, it's no different than
mm,
real estate. If you don't buy the house properly, you'll never make money in the end. It's the same
mm,
thing. No difference. The only difference is it's a plane and it's a house. And technically, the plane is worth more in parts than it is to purchase. So that's where the win is in what we're
mm,
doing. Where the house, you have to put money in to renovate it to make it worth more
mm,
in the end, your after renovated value, right? Or a property in general. So Skylease 25 is technically just a real estate model. It's like a syndication. An investor puts their capital in, they receive a percentage yearly for the term of the aircraft being on a lease to someone. And then at the end of the lease, we create value by parting the aircraft itself out
mm,
and selling the parts to another company that we own that will buy those parts. So it creates an internal engine that just keeps moving with it's not a literal guarantee, but it's as close to a guarantee as you can get without literally being guaranteed. It's all inside baseball.
yeah,
So the model can run very smoothly because the operators that are operating the aircraft, they're in network, they're partners of ours. We already
yeah,
vetted them. They have guaranteed revenue programs in place, which guarantees that they're going to be paid for every hour that plane is in their existence, which guarantees they're going to be able to pay the lease on the aircraft. Those things are all in place
mm,
before we even buy the aircraft.
yeah,
And then we know that the parts are at a specific stage and that they have correct kind of programs on them, airframe, engine, APU programs, the highest level possible, to ensure that when we do part the aircraft out, that part is going to be worth the absolute best it possibly can. We have random audits of the aircraft when it's at the operator, even though we know them. We do random audits to find out, make sure that they're performing the maintenance required because it is a dry lease. So they're in charge of everything, insurance, all of that. Yes, we still
mm.
carry insurance, but that's a backing insurance to make sure that we're covered as well. So I'm saying a lot without saying much.
Yeah, yeah, it's very good. So it wasn't like thought about when you're sitting on the toilet in the bathroom and you're thinking, oh, what should I do today? It's actually like a real plan that's got some real, let's say, years of experience based from several industries that would become apparent.
Yeah,
And that's why it's quite niche. And the
smart.
investors are benefiting from that. So it's not like they're trying to do something a little bit risky. And then that's the Skylease 25. But what about the income fund? Because that's even bigger than the Skylease
Yeah.
25. That's already going to there. And then there's other systems in place, like some internal stuff for you guys. So how do you get into the like income fund side of things?
First, let's talk about the income fund is. It's a fixed income vehicle for people. Our goal was to be able to provide returns to investors that are well above the S&P 500 bonds, REITs, all of this, right? It's laughable what those things are at, to be
Mm,
honest. Which is fine if you're putting $1 billion in there,
yeah.
because you don't need more than 3 or 4% on $1 billion. Why? What are you gonna do with it? So that makes sense. But when people are looking for passive income to replace their job, they need something that's meaningful, a
Mm,
return that actually can put something in their pockets. So
yeah.
the income fund provides 12 to 15% per year, and it does that through deploying capital into a very specific financial product that has back tested for over 20 years, the same way we did the Skylease model.
Yeah.
Every single year, we have accurate historical returns from that thing, and it has beaten the S&P almost 10x every year since I back tested it through 2024 is what I back tested this model through. with the specific companies that we're working with to allow them to get this. So the purpose of the income fund is to provide fixed income. That's it. It's that simple. People need that. And if you put $1 million in, you're making $275,000 a year passive off that money. And at the end of the term of the fund, the investor gets their money back. So that's where it's key. That's where the put your money to work for you goes, that you're not doing anything. That money's and it's working for you and it's providing you pure interest on that money. Your principal is locked up in a product that we have access to, that very rarely people have access to. And it's locked up in that space, which is providing them that 15% return. Yes, we make money too, but we make a total of about 28%. So we give the majority to the investor. The investor gets that 15 and we take the 13%. So we take 13%. Now, this is where it gets exciting. That 13% that the fund takes and it retains, we take that capital and we deploy it into these vehicles like Skylease 25 ourselves, so that the fund itself is investing into the Skylease 25 product alongside the investors that are investing in the Skylease 25 product. So investors have even more of a comfort level that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. We put our money into this, right? Obviously, we put our money in to build the thing. We did all the back testing. We're the ones that had the 2 aircraft flying with the operator and testing everything for 2 years. So we obviously put our money in there, but also we're doing it with the income fund because it just makes sense, man. This thing makes real capital and it's an asset on the books. And that's something unique about Skylease 25 is the investors actually are part of it. They're actually partners. I don't want to get too far and I'm not trying to sell anything. Just trying to explain it.
And it just proves that you're not like spreadsheet fantasies. It's actually based on real deals. And so
that's right.
What would you say is the biggest thing that like M&A advisors and also investors get wrong most of the times? Because obviously you've got some good stuff out there, but not everybody's doing those. So what is it they're getting wrong to actually be able to evaluate whether something's good or bad?
I can't speak about all M&A advisors. I speak about all investors. Obviously, we know this, but there's a lot. They're really willing to go deeply into things and waste a lot of time without being sure that they're going to move forward with things.
Okay.
And it's part of their mandate in general, like M&A guys and so on and so forth. They have to go through these deals and so on and so forth. Yeah, they're being paid, but they go in too deep and they drag people along and they waste time. You should know pretty quickly if this deal is good or not with a gut check. With any deal. Then you can go look at the due diligence and prove your gut or disprove your gut. But you've got to make a decision quickly. And I think a lot of people wait and rely on all the analysis to come back to make their decision instead of going with their gut and then backing their gut up with the information. So it's important to make a decision quickly. Decisions are, the longer you take to make a decision, the more wrong it's going to be. I can tell you that right now. I've realized that my whole life. Like the deals that I go and I take forever and I hem and haw and I look back and forth. You know what that means? That means it's not a good deal. That means it's not a good deal.
So how do you personally then decide if a deal's worth the risk then?
Let's say I haven't figured out my full system yet, but what I do is first thing I need a conversation with somebody. You need to talk to them. You can pretty much tell right away if they're an expert in their field and if they know what's going on. And if they are an expert in their field and they have a track record and they have a good team around them, then you should say yes. Then go through their confirmatory due diligence to make sure that thing's real. But if you're talking to somebody and they don't know what they're talking about, or this, yeah, we have that, but it's over there, or we haven't done it before and none of our people have, but it should work the systems. That's logical. That's obviously a very logical one that we would all see, but you got to trust your gut. And I know that sounds very counterintuitive to a lot of investors out there, but you got to trust your gut up front and then you got to back it up with your analysts. Okay. And you got to be willing to lose some money too. If you risk, without risk, there's no reward. Okay. You know how much money I've lost in my life because of investments I put into out of being sold by a salesman? That's the next thing I want to talk about. Don't be sold by a salesman. Be sold because you love the people and you love the deal. Be willing to lose the money because you love the people and you love the deal, but don't let the salesman sell you.
But you mentioned salesmen then. So what kind of people do you avoid in business now? Is it the salespeople? Especially after all the lessons you've learned along the hard way.
Yeah, the people that aren't doing it, let's put it that way. I avoid the people that aren't doing it.
Mm,
If I will listen to the salesperson, but I want to meet the principal. That's where I'll make my decision. When I meet the principal, when I speak to the people that are actually doing the stuff, you can
mm,
tell pretty quickly. There's a group that I was working with last year, and their principal, I brought someone to the table to help them raise some capital. A rather large firm I brought to the table to help them raise some capital.
mm.
And the principal, CEO, owner, founder of the damn company is late to Zooms. When he's on Zooms, he's doing this. Yeah. Okay. So he's not even looking at the camera. He's looking up and off and into the distance. And when he does speak, it's very harsh and very abrupt and gritty.
Yeah.
And you can tell he doesn't want to be on the call. And I'm sitting there, fine. I'm not going to be here. Thank you. Not going to help you.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "What's going on? Why aren't you going to help?" Because I don't like the principal. At the end of the day, I'm sorry. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you think that your company's hot stuff. If I don't like the principal, I'm not going to put my money behind it. So I'm not going to ask anybody to put their money behind it.
Mm. Makes no sense.
You got to know when you have a principal who's passionate and loves something, and you can feel it in their voice. It almost grabs you. They believe in this thing. And that's also scary because if you get pulled into that trap and that person happens to be self-destructive,
You go with
is
them.
that, yeah, you
Yeah.
don't go with them, but your money goes with them,
Yeah.
which has happened to me before. I've invested in opportunities where the principal was extremely passionate and this and that, but they also completely defied their board and decided to do their own thing and go Ronin. And because they thought it was the best thing for the company, and up in
Mm,
smoke, right?
mm.
So there's a lot, David. It's
Yeah.
nuance, it's reading people, it's experience, it's
Yeah.
having done it, been there. When you're talking about M&A, I'll give you another one for M&A. There's two ways to do a deal in M&A. I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you, as an M&A professional, you think about this all the time, right? There is your price, their terms, their price, your
Yes.
terms,
Exactly.
right? And you
Mm,
always want their price, your terms,
mm,
because their price, your terms means you could pay 10,000 a month for the next 30 years
mm,
to give them their payout. That's their price, your terms. Yeah, we're paying your price. It's just going to be our
mm.
terms as to how we pay it. But our price, their terms, that could be all the money up front right now. And guess what? That's never good for purchasing a business. So that's a simple little thing from M&A that I absolutely love and that I think a lot of people don't go too deep into when they're first getting into it. Terms are key. Price is not.
Makes
Price
a lot of
is
sense.
pretty logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, so if you, let's say you're in teaching mode or you're in, let's say, prophesizing mode, is there something that you would like to, or you could share with like founders or another GB general practitioner or maybe M&A or investors of one of the things that you would say is the worst mistake that, that you've experienced that, and what would that be that you said you've gone down that way and if you could avoid it because you didn't even have to experience, you just did. Is there something that you would put your finger on and say that's the area that I think that I don't know what I was thinking. I just went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Growing too quickly.
Okay. But there's a difference between growth and scaling.
Yes. Massive difference.
Mm,
Massive. Growing is adding people, more jobs, separating things out without every single process, system, step in place for that person before they come on board.
okay. That's an important lesson there. I could use that myself, as you probably know.
So when you hire people,
Yeah.
yeah, if you just hire people to hire people,
Mm,
they have a resume or they are good at what they do, and you expect them to have agency and to take care of themselves and to build their own systems, we're fooling ourselves. And I learned
mm,
this very much the hard way. Okay. You have to have their job completely outlined. You've got to have their job outlined to a T, what you expect from them every day. Now, you don't have to give that to them, but you have to give it to yourself. You need to know what you expect from them, or you're going to get angry for no reason and you're not going to know why, and you're going to get massive deproductivity out of them because and you're not going to know why, and you're going to end up in a situation where you go, it took you 2 weeks to provide me this, I could have done in 30 minutes. Why? And they're going to give you every answer under the sun. I had to do some research, I had to learn this, I had to make phone calls, and I had to wait for phone calls back, and then I sent emails and I didn't get an email back, so I had to wait, and then I made a phone call, and then I put this together and I finally came up with this thing, and I'm like, this is not your fault, buddy, this is mine. And
mm,
that's it. And we could get upset with them if we want, but we can't. because it's not their fault. It's my fault. I didn't put a system in place to eliminate every one of those things that person was talking about from happening. I
Mm,
put a process in place to eliminate each one of these spikes from happening. My fault. My fault, not his. So not going to get fired. No, I'm going to work on systems and put them in place and give them a checklist and give them steps in order
mm,
to ensure that they get it done exactly how I want them to get it done in their own way, following my steps.
mm.
I give it to them and see how long it'll take them. Yes. First time, maybe a week. Second time, half a week. Third time, 2 days. Fourth time, 30 minutes.
Yeah, there is no
Because
fourth
they
time.
listen, I'm being nice here, dude.
Okay, okay, okay.
It's better than 2 weeks in
Yeah.
BS. So if the system's in place, it should cut it down, right? The system's in place and we give it to them, they should cut it down, or else they don't belong there.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
But if the system's in place, they followed it and they still screwed it up.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. I also know that you have a little side hobby, and it's cars.
Oh
So,
yeah.
how has
Oh yeah.
cars and the automotive enthusiasm you have, how is that cross-sectioned with how your career's progressed? Have you found that your decisions, your approach to your automotive pursuits have changed and evolved? Has your careers evolved as well?
No, they correlate, but the last question I'm saying is no. My tastes have not changed. I'm a Lamborghini guy through and through. Always will be. And right here. You can't see this one, but there's a Murcielago here and a Veneno right here. Lamborghini guy through and through. And it really comes back to the origination story of Lamborghini, which I'm sure we all know if we saw anything on social media about the Lamborghini story with Ferruccio. But Ferruccio Lamborghini was an avid Ferrari purchaser. He owned every single Ferrari that they put out that was road legal, and it seemed to have a problem with his clutch. His CEO was a tractor maker. Lamborghini was a tractor company. They made tractors. And he realized that if he could retrofit a clutch from his tractor into a Ferrari, it would work much better and be much smoother and actually hold more power. So he one day went to Enzo Ferrari and said, Mr. Ferrari, I own every single car you have. I love them and I buy every new one you put out. And I find them amazing. They're the best driving vehicle on the road. But I do have something I'd like you to look at. It is a clutch that I've retrofitted and it makes my cars drive 10 times better. And Ferrari literally looked at him and went, go back to your tractors, tractor builder, and told him to F off. Literally. From that day forward, he never bought another Ferrari. And he was on a path to destroy Lamborghini. To destroy Lamborghini, Ferruccio Lamborghini was on a path to destroy Ferrari.
Mm.
So I really resonate with him because I've always been an underdog my entire life. I didn't really have help doing what I'm doing because I was a tough person. I've always been yes, I'm cordial, I'm very nice, but I also have a line, right? So there's the other side to me, which is positive for business too, because it makes sure things that bad don't happen anymore.
Mm.
But I'm a little gruff. Sometimes I could be too arrogant, and that can turn a lot of people off. And I had to learn it all on my own, like I said, right? Because of that. So I really resonate with Crucio in that regard. And one of the reasons I love Lamborghini is because they've still stuck true to that vision of being a passion, emotion-filled adventure, right?
Mm.
Yes, there's a lot of crazy people that own those things and they're loud and they're obnoxious. Yes, I love that. Yes, Ferrari is heartless and soulless now. The cars basically drive themselves. No offense to all of you Ferrari lovers out there. It's true. And I'm a Lamborghini guy. Just by the way I'm talking, we probably wouldn't be friends. So it is
Setting the
what it is.
set the
It
line
is what it
clear.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So,
also from that story, though, I got that the way that you've been telling how you're growing up is that you had to experience the failures. You've had your own systems. It's almost as if you were Enzo Ferrari. Somebody tells you there's a better way, put it in that, but you didn't want to listen. You have to make your own mistakes. So that story definitely does correlate to what your history's been going
so,
on about. So I can see the
so
connections there.
here's what's even crazier.
Yeah.
What you just brought out is 100% true. And shadow self, if you know anything about the shadow self,
Mm.
the people that we usually do not like the most are the people that are usually most like us. And the reason that we get so angry about situations and other people doing that is because it is a part of our disowned self, a part of us that we I've disowned. We no longer agree that it is there, but in order to move ahead in life, we actually have to recognize that part is there. So yes, I recognize that I was the Enzo Ferrari for a lot of my life, right? And I think
Mm,
the reason I love Lamborghini is because he's not that. He's the opposite of that. So maybe
mm,
because I'm more like Enzo with that arrogance and that I know better and I'm going to do it my way type thing. I've created little Lamborghinis around me all over the place from the music industry.
mm.
And guess what? They're kicking ass.
Yeah.
They're doing
So you'd be
awesome.
happy about that. Again, it's like, yeah, but I made
I
them.
no, actually, it's not even about, to be honest, it's not even about me there. I
Mm,
truly am happy for those people
yeah.
because I have no desire to be in that industry ever again. I know I can do it. I'm good enough with that. I don't need to prove anything. I know
Mm,
I can do it. Like if I go do a record, I can go do a record right now. I don't care. I will and I can, but I don't need to. But those kids are killing it. They're getting Grammys, they're getting platinum records, they're getting gold records, they're working with the people they've dreamed of working with. And that was the plan from the beginning from those kids that I trained. That was what I wanted for them. I'm happy they did it. So either I was a jerk of enough, like Enzo, that they went out and proved me wrong, which
mm,
I know at least two that did. And my
yeah.
God, I couldn't be more proud of them. And then others
Mm,
listened to me and
mm,
just created little mini versions of myself. They're little minis of me, thinking the same way I do, doing the same things I would have done, so on and so forth, which is fine. And they're winning, and I'm proud of them. But I'm more proud of the guys that I was a jerk to and went and kicked ass because of it.
yeah.
That just excites me because they were tough. They made it the
So,
real way.
do you have any mentees or people that you're showing or showing the ropes to in your PE stuff that you're doing at the moment?
Listen, since COVID, in-person communication has almost been eliminated for a lot of places and a lot of people.
Mm,
So I thrive off in-person communication,
mm,
in-person conversations, in-person training. No, I couldn't do it over a computer. I don't think. It's not the same. You have to be able to feel, touch, understand, be on the same wavelength, butt heads,
yeah.
not butt heads, in order to get into an environment like that. And if this is so interpersonal, like interpersonal, sorry, this is so impersonal that I just can't do it the same. Also, I don't really like people that much. So I really wouldn't over Zoom. I really wouldn't do it. I have to be in person. And I look forward to the day where I can again. But doing business with people in different states and all over the world
Mm,
over the computer, we've only got an hour and a half, maybe half hour together.
mm,
There's no time for mentoring. There's no, I just haven't figured out the system to do, and I'm not going to.
mm. Yeah, maybe it could be the idea that you sell a $5,000 course without selling the juice, and then they can sell a $10,000 course just to get the
Right.
extra course, extra
Wow.
couple of days. And if it worked for
You know
Mr.
what?
Marvelous,
It did. I can't say that's something I want to do though.
yeah. Yeah. But when we start going
I
back to the Lamborghinis, though, because maybe
oh
it could
yeah,
be the way
sure.
you can get to your Lamborghini.
I could have gotten to a Lamborghini multiple times, and I chose to do investments instead.
Mm,
I chose to the income fund with Todd. I chose to start a real estate company. I chose to, I don't know. There's many things I've chosen over a Lamborghini so many times. It's actually ridiculous. I've
yeah.
had McLarens, I've had Rolls Royces, but I've never bought a freaking Lamborghini. I don't know if it's a don't meet your idol
Here. Yeah.
thing or a secret fear I have, but something has never let me pull the trigger on a Lambo.
Have you driven one yet? Not like own one, but have you driven one?
Yeah, yeah. Private equity. The owner of the company he had a Lamborghini,
Okay.
and I drove it. Best friggin' experience of my life.
Mm. So when it comes down to the owners of like private equity firms and those sort of investment areas, and they're driving these fancy cars, what does that tell
hmm
you? Does that inspire you, or is it a little bit of envy, or is it a little bit like they got what they wanted? Maybe they're charging me too much as an investor.
No, definitely not.
Mm,
That's a really hard job. I
mm,
know as an owner of one. I know what you got to deal with, and I know how people are, and I know how people look at things, and there's no envy. I'm sure some people do have envy, but they're really short-sighted if they do, and
mm,
it's quite ignorant. the amount of stuff they've had to go through to get to that point, unless it's daddy's money. Daddy helped you set this up. Daddy hooked you up with his CPA. Daddy gave you his lawyer. His lawyer's handling all the money. You're just doing your thing and making money off
Mm,
of it. That's a different freaking story. We're talking
mm,
about real Americans that made something, not spoiled people.
mm,
Real Americans that made something that came from nothing. That's very hard. At least my journey. I'm telling you, my journey is full of scars, like we talked about, like
mm,
over and over again. And my biggest problem was picking partners. I failed picking partners so many times, it's not
mm,
even funny.
okay.
And I learned by them stealing money from me,
Yeah.
like stealing my money from me. That's how I learned about it. I didn't know they were bad partners until that point. And there were red flags. I ignored them early on. I don't ignore them anymore. In fact, I call them out and I am so blatant with it. Even to you as a friend, I've said, hey, I'm seeing things. Just look at them. That I've seen things because I've been there, done that, been hurt, been burned, been exploded by a grenade that didn't know it was coming towards me, or an IED that was under the
Yeah.
ground, didn't know it was there. Boom, explodes. Holy crap.
Mm,
So now people I care about, I try to let them know about it. And sometimes people take it as me being negative towards them because
mm,
I grew up in that kind of a mindset where if I said something negative about something, oh, you're just being negative. Oh, you're just being this. Oh,
mm.
you're just being that. I grew up with hearing that my whole life. So, screw you. I'm pointing out red flags so you don't go be blown up. But
Yeah, exactly.
some people heed it and look at it and really think about it. And that's all I want to do for people. Could be a red flag. It might not, but I want to point it out so people know. What was your question? I went off on a random rant about red flags, sir.
I forget now. To try and
Okay,
get to say
good.
it was a good.
Wonderful.
It wasn't a rant. It was perfect sort of scenario.
All right.
So basically, it was about how do things align. I believe that's what I was going on about. I had to go back into the recording because obviously these are not scripted conversation
No,
questions. So I'm just going
no.
into those. So otherwise, I'll go back into the recording and say it was exactly that, those sort of things. But yeah, but at the moment though, I think we've been speaking now for about an hour or so.
Yeah,
The
that's the
time's flown
problem.
by. Yeah, it's been going
It's the
really well.
problem when you get me into these things. I will
That
not stop. I have
it
stories for days too.
for future webinar podcasts that we can do in the future sort of thing, it'd be
Yeah.
perfect for those. So how do people connect with you? Because obviously you've got social media stuff. So how would you like to interact with people? Even though you say you're not a people person, you really are. You're actually an interesting, fun person to be around. I know
Oh,
that.
well,
So
thanks.
that's the thing. So even though you think you're not a people person, you are. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
So how would they connect with you? How would you interact or how would they
LinkedIn.
reach out? Yep.
LinkedIn's best. Or if you are in a local cigar shop somewhere, I might be there because 90% of my time is spent in a cigar shop.
90%. Have you ever thought about owning a cigar shop?
Oh, it's the most silliest thing on the planet to own a cigar shop.
But
Do
you'd
you
be
know how
there all the
much
time,
in
your best customer.
yeah, but you know how much inventory is in those rooms where that is not moving? You know, dead inventory you're sitting on in a cigar shop?
And it all goes up in
Millions,
smoke.
literally. But yeah, to have a real cigar shop, you have literally millions in inventory. And then, no, it's a silly business. It is for people that love it. That's it. You have to be retired. Don't go start a cigar shop and expect to make any money.
Yeah.
No, you will go broke. That's because you care about people.
Start getting into the engineering of that, the humidor and that sort of stuff, and then how luxury the leather chair
Oh
has to
my
be. And
God. It would be fun. So it would be so much fun, but don't ever expect it to be profitable.
yeah.
You take the money you're putting into that, take the money out of your pillowcase that's not ever going to do anything. You could put that into owning a cigar shop, but don't put any investments into it. It isn't an investment. It's literally, it's worse than owning a boat the wrong way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll find me in around the world. Wherever I am, I'm in a cigar shop.
Perfect.
That's the best place to find me.
Yeah, very cool. So thank you very
LinkedIn, of
much.
course.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time today, then, William. It's been a pleasure as always chatting to you and the wisdom that you have to share with everybody. Is there any closing words you would like to actually offer to anybody before we close out?
Fail, fail again. Learn why you failed each time.
Yeah,
Eliminate that from your steps and try it again.
yeah. It sounds like
But
positive
but
words there.
but fail. Please go fail. I want you all to fail.
Mm. Learn the lessons
Positively.
from it. Yeah, learn the lessons from the failing sort of
Right.
thing. So thank you very
You
much for
have
that.
to.
And so I'd like to ask everybody to stay around for our next podcast with an even like similar quality, interesting person that's been in the M&A industry for a long time, been in aviation, they're investors, etc. So looking forward to seeing you on our next podcast. See you later, everybody. Goodbye from me. And I guess goodbye from you.
Yeah. I guess goodbye for me.